So I'm going to be straight up honest with you all. I'm really disappointed once again with a lot of creators out there and so-called influencers out there, especially in the camera space, that continue just to shill and not give you the full story. Now, when it comes to the Insta360 Luna Ultra, there's a lot to like, a whole lot to like, and I do. But there's one major issue that I am very worried that may not be solved. And because of that, I have 4 more days to make a decision whether this large issue is something big enough for me to return. Now, if you haven't seen my other videos, they will all be linked down below, where I discovered the very real issue of this color shifting that happens when you zoom in. I did a follow-up video testing some of your solutions that really didn't make much of a difference, but I didn't do one thing that I think is pretty important, and that is putting the camera in all manual. So I went outside, did a quick test where I locked the ISO, I locked the speed, everything's manual, it's not automatic, and it's all in the normal color profile. And unfortunately, well, take a look at this. This is complete full on manual, and I locked the white balance at 5,000 Kelvin. So all that stuff is from suggestions from you all. I didn't do it in the beginning just because I don't have ND filters, but I went out early in the morning and I did this. And to be honest with you, it might be worse. So we're looking at 1x right now, and we're going to then move up to 2x to 3x to 6x. And you tell me what you see. Check this out. Here is 1x. Now we're going to move up to 2x. Little re-rendering there. Definitely see a shift there. And full on what? Do you see that? Look how dark that is once we go to 6x. There's people out there telling me they can't see this. Bros, I gotta tell you, you might want to book a appointment at the eye doctor, because if you can't see this right here, that's insane. But it almost seems worse than my other tests in full automatic. Again, if you want to view those videos, they'll be linked down below. But again, and just in the interest of full disclosure and honesty, watch this. So 6x, that was 12x. This is 6x, back to 3 to 2. So now you'll notice that we are also seeing a shift going from 3 to 2. You see how it gets darker, and then 2 to 1 seems to keep it the same. So I used to think it was between steps 2 and 3, which is right there, but now if we go to 6, did you see that shift? Remember, this is all fully locked in manual. I don't know what's going on, but I certainly see it. I'm going to play this loop through one more time, just in case you guys, for whatever reason, aren't noticing it. But there we are to 2x. There we are to 6x. Huge change. Now wait till I start pulling back. That's a digital zoom to the 12. Now let's start pulling back. Boom, right there, 3x. Then to 2x, right? So I don't really know what's going on, but it's really making me question whether I want to keep this camera. So here's my big deal. If I'm out there and I see an animal, let's say, and I want to film it in a very wide landscape in a field, let's say it's a buffalo, and then I want to zoom in. Well, if I do that, when I go back to post, I'm going to have to color match this stuff, which when you're thinking about what I do, especially for my hobbies that I don't really even share with you all, that is a large undertaking. I'm going to have to color match based off of what the zoom that I'm using. And yeah, I'll admit, it is a little bit better if you're willing to shoot in iLog with focus breathing on. That seems to be the best one for my testing. However, there still is these shifts that I can't really explain. Now, I used to think it was going from 2 to 3x, and there's certainly something going on there. But in this footage, I noticed it more going from 3 to 6x. A lot of people are suggesting, well, it's because you're moving lenses. Obviously, they have different apertures, but I'm not so sure that's the whole story. There's a lot of other people out there that are saying, hey, chill out, Hill. They're definitely going to solve this with some type of firmware or software. Again, I don't really know how that happens when you have 2 different f-stops. And what are you going to rely on? Something like AI or embedded software? As someone who works in the software industry, works in the hardware industry, I know how difficult that can be. And when we're talking about 2 different lenses with 2 different optics and marrying that in a camera that you expect to be really quick, I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen like you all think. So for this reason, I really have been made to think, do I really want to keep this around, and hope that Insta360 comes up with some type of firmware solution. I'm just not as positive on that regard in terms of that truly happening. So if you guys are looking to get this camera, listen, you may want to wait. and see my full review, because I don't want to be Mr. Negative. But on the same hand, there's kind of an 800-pound gorilla, and it's so big, it might ruin a lot of your shots, for example. So I wanted to break in here, not to muddy the waters, but I got a really cool comment that said, what if they're using some type of multimetering to then, mess with the focus and or the exposure, and mainly the exposure? Because when I see these shifts, I definitely see some type of re-rendering happen, in my opinion, and I definitely see a shift where it goes from light to dark. So you'll see it here once we go from 2x, which we're here now, to 3x, and you can see how much lighter that got. So I'm going to play that again just in case you did not see that. And it gets real bad when we go the next step up to 6x. So now, and you see how it kind of just refreshes and re-renders. For me, that would indicate maybe they are doing something. But when you have it locked into manual, where I've locked the ISO, I've locked the speed, and the aperture is relatively consistent, I mean, I still think going from one lens of 1.8 to 2.0 aperture will cause some type of issue, but not this extreme, in my opinion. So I don't know if I'm leaning into the theory of there must be some type of processing going on, even if we have it locked in manual. And in order to change something, you'd have to change the tenets of the exposure triangle, which again means you're altering the speed, you're altering the aperture, or you're altering the ISO, which we currently have locked. So I don't know if I buy into that. However, if there is some type of processing going on, maybe that represents some type of hope that eventually Insta360 can kind of figure this algorithm out and what they need to do to adjust it between the two lenses, or I don't even know if it is between the two lenses anymore. So it's a big question as to why it's all happening, but I thought this was a pretty good theory to throw in. Let's get back to it. Now, if you're not doing professional work, or you're not doing YouTube, or you just don't care, it may not be an issue for you. But for someone who does like to color grade and does understand color matching is probably one of the hardest things to do. I don't necessarily know if this makes it easier for me to do what I like to do, which is enjoy the moment, film, and be able to come back knowing that I'll see consistent results. I haven't seen consistency coming out of this camera when it comes to zooming into the different perspectives. And I think that's something you should be aware of. Anyways, if you like this type of stuff, I'm going to be doing a whole bunch more, and I will give you my final decision whether I'm going to return it or not a little bit later. But follow along, and please consider liking, subscribing if you found any value in this. My name's HillPhantom. I'll see you next time.